Everything changed the instant my younger sister laughed across the Christmas dinner table and announced that I was 35, still unmarried, and probably spending every holiday alone. The room erupted with laughter. My father laughed the hardest, while my mother simply smiled and brushed the comment aside as if it were completely harmless. They expected me to react the way I always had, stay silent, force a polite smile, and let the joke settle on my shoulders so everyone else could enjoy the evening. What none of them realized was that I hadn't returned home for Christmas. I had come back because someone had forged my signature on documents connected to an asset worth millions of dollars. Before the holiday was over, my family would discover that the quiet daughter they had ignored for years was no longer willing to protect them. My name is Emma Carter. I'm 35 years old, and I specialize in designing acoustic environments. Recording studios, hospitals, theaters, and universities hire me because I understand how sound behaves inside a space. I know the difference between a room that is peaceful and one that is filled with unspoken tension. Ironically, I spent most of my own life inside a family where no one wanted to hear the truth. To my parents and sister, I was always the disappointing daughter. I left our hometown instead of joining the family business, and I refused to follow the life they had planned for me. I didn't marry according to their expectations, so every holiday gathering eventually turned into another opportunity to make me the family joke. What they never cared to acknowledge was that I had built a successful company entirely on my own. My work earned recognition throughout the country, yet the people who should have been proud of me still introduced me as the daughter who walked away. About a week before Christmas, I received a phone call from an elderly technician who had worked for our family business for decades. In a quiet voice, he warned me that my father was preparing to sell the company to a group of investors and had been telling everyone that every important design belonged to the business. Then he asked a single question that completely changed everything. Had I ever signed over the rights to my invention? My answer came instantly. Never. That invention was the very reason the company had survived. 11 years earlier, when the business was on the edge of bankruptcy, I had spent every weekend back home working day and night to create a revolutionary acoustic panel that transformed the company's future. Orders flooded in almost immediately, and the business was saved. The family name remained above the front door because of something I had designed with my own hand. Gradually, however, my role disappeared from the story. Customers stopped hearing my name. Employees began referring to it as my father's invention. Eventually, even my own family acted as though I had never been involved. I convinced myself that receiving credit wasn't important. I had my own career and my own success. I believed allowing them to keep the recognition was an act of love. Looking back now, I realize it was simply fear disguised as kindness. The morning after Christmas dinner, I went to the company pretending that I only wanted to admire the holiday decoration. Investors were walking through the building while my father proudly guided them from one conference room to another, confidently explaining that every patent and every design belonged entirely to the company. He kept repeating the same reassuring phrase. Everything is completely in order. I knew that at least one document wasn't. When I casually asked if I could look over the intellectual property files, my younger sister stepped directly in front of me. Smiling sweetly, she suggested that I was only jealous because I had abandoned the family years ago. My mother quickly repeated the same sentence she had used throughout my childhood. She's only joking. Those 4 words had excused decades of cruelty. This time, they were expected to excuse a serious. The document contained a legal assignment transferring ownership of my invention to the company. My signature appeared neatly at the bottom of the page, but it wasn't mine. Whoever had forged it had clearly spent time practicing. At first glance, it looked convincing, yet I instantly recognized the differences. The slant of the letters was wrong, the spacing was unnaturally precise, and the small details that had always made my signature unique were missing. Then I noticed the date. According to the paperwork, I had signed the agreement while I was supposedly in Ohio. The problem was that I hadn't even been in the country. On that exact day, I was thousands of miles away speaking at an international engineering conference in Europe. I still had photographs, hotel receipts, conference schedules, passport stamps, and travel records proving exactly where I had. This wasn't an accident. Someone had knowingly chosen to forge my name. That evening, I confronted my father in private. I expected him to deny everything, but instead he admitted it without hesitation. He insisted the invention belonged to the family because I had developed it while helping his company. In his mind, signing my name was nothing more than completing paperwork I had neglected. He didn't see it as theft. He called it responsible parenting. Then he revealed something that explained far more than I expected. Decades earlier, His own father had claimed credit for one of his earliest designs. Instead of ending that cycle, he had accepted it as normal. He genuinely believed that taking credit from family members for the sake of the family name was honorable. Looking directly into my eyes, he said the words I would never forget. The family name always comes first. For the first time, I understood what that sentence truly meant. It had never been about protecting one another. It had always meant sacrificing whoever stood in the way. The following morning, my parents begged me to sign a new agreement that would legally replace the forged document before the company's sale was finalized. They argued it would protect the employees, save the business, and preserve our family's reputation. My younger sister even reminded me that my husband was a successful investment executive and suggested he quietly use his connections to rescue the deal. For a few moments, I honestly considered it. One phone call could have solved everything. Then I remembered why I had returned home. I hadn't come back to save a lie. I had come back to stop living inside one. I immediately contacted an intellectual property attorney who confirmed exactly what I already suspected. A forged signature transfers no legal rights. My invention still belonged entirely to me. All I had to do was tell the truth when the investors asked about ownership. Soon, the closing meeting arrived. Lawyers filled the conference room while investors smiled confidently, expecting the biggest transaction in the company's history to be completed without problems. Then an accountant asked a simple routine question. Could the inventor please confirm the ownership transfer? Every pair of eyes turned toward me. Quietly, my father slid a freshly prepared agreement across the table with a pen resting on top. One signature would erase the forgery forever. One signature would save the sale. I looked at the pen for a long moment before gently pushing it back across the table. Calmly, I explained that I had never signed the original agreement, that I had undeniable evidence proving I was overseas on the date listed, and that I would never validate a document created through fraud. The room fell into complete silence. Within seconds, the investors suspended the acquisition while their attorneys began reviewing every legal document connected to the company. My father tried to justify his actions. My sister pleaded with me to call my husband and use his influence to save the deal. I refused. The truth didn't need saving. It only needed someone willing to stop protecting the lies. Several months